Cool. All right, sorry for the delay. All right, we're gonna start. So, like I said, we're gonna be working on CRUD, but from the browser. So, June last week talked about CRUD. Does anyone remember what CRUD is? No? Create, read, update, and destroy. So basically what that means is, every model we have in the database, those are like the basic functionalities, right? When you have a user, what do? You create users, you read them, you update their attributes, and you destroy them. So that's what CRUD is, and we're gonna be learning how to do that today. So, okay, yeah, so again, like if you guys haven't learned how to do this yet, get stoked, because this is like, dude, this is every application that has a user interface, like for example, Facebook, this is sort of the implementation they do. Obviously, they might use different frameworks and everything, but the basic idea is the same. So it's really exciting. Okay, so yeah, for our app, we're gonna be creating a library, just things where you create books. So what's the first thing you do when you need to create a model? We run the generator command, right? You do Rails generate model, right? So let's first create our new app. So I'm gonna terminal here. Sorry, let me turn off some servers. Okay. Call just book library. We're starting from scratch again, just to get you guys. Can you guys see that, by the way? No? Okay, let me make it bigger. Yeah, no, it's kind of small, huh? Can everyone see that? Yeah, okay, we're good, okay. But yeah, we're starting from scratch again, just to, get you guys accustomed to Rails. So let me cd into my app. So for our book model, what we're gonna have just two attributes, a title and a description, okay? And they're type string and type text. So what's the difference between string and text, right? String is basically for smaller, smaller values, usually 128 characters. Text is for larger things. You can make it string, but I'm just making it text. That's just the basic difference in Rails. Any questions so far? Good? Awesome, okay. So let's go ahead and generate our model. By the way, when I generate a model, it's just is that they're not plural. So it's not books, it's book, okay? So let's do this. Okay, cool. So you can see what it did, right? It created a migration file, created a book.rb, which is our model class file, and it creates some test files, which we don't need to care about right now. Does everyone understand migrations, models? Yeah, okay. So basically what's happening here, when we generate, I want to make this clear. When we generate something, right, that doesn't actually migrate that file to the database. Our database is still empty, okay? So it just like added our file in some directory, in our DB directory, okay? The model is still not there. So what's the command that we use in order to migrate our file to our database? To essentially create this model, which we can use, which is books. Anyone remember? Right, rake db migrate, right? Rake db migrate. So when we run rake db migrate, what's gonna happen is that our rake god, some god, comes in, adds the table, right? That's what you have to know. It adds this table, and now we can like add books, we can update books. It's part of our database now. Good? Cool. So let's rake db migrate. Awesome. So see here, it says create table. We created our table. And actually, let me really quickly show you guys. Cool. So, oh, by the way, if you guys are using Sublime, you want to open it from a terminal, just search up how to do that, and it's really cool. Because now I can search for all my files in this that's within that directory. So I could just type it in. Create books was the migration file, right? So I'm just showing you guys a migration file. This is how it looks like. It's just creating a table for us. So when we ran rake d migrate, it actually migrated that to the database. Everyone good? Screen? Oh, screen small. Sorry, guys. Good. Any questions? No? Okay, cool, cool. All right, so now that we've created our model, right? Let's go back to our slides here. Okay. Rails app, and we do that by doing just Rails S, right? So Rails S, starting a server. And by default, it's running on localhost 3000. And I just wanted to also mention this really quick. Like, we didn't create any views yet, right? How is this being generated by default? It's really interesting. That's HTML, right? That's very interesting. And it's just Rails default. But if you look in your Rails server, it says right here, it's rendering index.html.erb within this directory, which is just a gem. So this is just a cool. Oh, yeah, this is just a cool fact to know. So you can see right here, it's rendering index.html.erb. Okay, cool. All right, so in order to create books, what do we need? Come on, guys, come on. No, no, okay. Well, we need a form, right? Like when you create a user, when you want to create a new user on Facebook, you just have a form. So that's the first thing we need, right? So we need a form, right? And when we submit that form, it needs to add a row in our database, an instance of that model, correct? Yeah? Seeing blank faces. Everyone good? Yeah, okay. Cool. So let's go ahead and create that form, okay? So the first thing we need is specify a route, right? In our routes.rb. So this is a get request. So all we're going to do here, just put it on the top. I'm going to do get book slash, and we're going to say this is going to go to, right? So we just specified a route, but we also need a controller, right? So we also can use the generate command to generate our book controller. So let's do generate controller, and this default practice controller names are plural. So model singular, controller names plural. So we generate so we run the generate command, and we see here that it created a books directory in our views folder, and also the books controller in our controllers folder, and helper file and some test files, which we're not going to talk about right now. Everyone good? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so now that we did this, we have to specify our action in our controller, right? So let's go to our controller. Start. Def. And we also need to create view in our books, our view slash books directory, correct? Let's go ahead and do that. Views, books. So we're going to say here, just HTML, we are where our form is to. Okay, so everything should work if we go to this URL, right? So our view is being rendered. Okay, so you guys should be dubious right now. Like, how is this actually working? And I'm going to touch upon that a little bit. How is Rails actually doing this? And to understand that, we need to review HTTP. So HTTP is just hypertext transfer protocol, and it's a way for communication between a client, which is our browser, and a server. So it's a way to transfer data between the two and everything like that. So what's actually happening here? When we go to this route, right? When we enter that route and we press enter, our browser issues a GET request. Okay, and I'll talk about GET and POST and the differences of that later. But right now, just it issues a request, and it's a GET request, right? Our Rails server receives that request. It's running locally in our computer, but it receives that request from the browser. And basically what happens is it looks in our routes.rb file, and it says, okay, so we went to this URL, right? So if we go to our routes file, it says, okay, it's telling the Rails, this file is telling us to go to the new action, right? So it goes to the new action, right? And then it renders the view. Yeah, but how's it doing that? Like, there's no code there in that function. That's crazy, right? Does anyone know why? Okay, it's because it's inheriting from application controller. So that inheritance is giving functionality to that function. It's basically telling at the end of that function, it's basically like invisibly inputting render this view. Okay, so like literally this is the same thing. Okay, if we do render and we go ahead and refresh those 4 steps I just told you, it's the same exact thing if that wasn't there. Okay, so if I do this, if I do like, I don't know, show, right, some other view, and I refresh it, it's gonna give me an error because it's looking for the show template now, but it's not there. But when there's nothing specified, just know that because it's inheriting from application controller, the default functionality is that it renders the new.html.erb within the books directory because this is the books controller. Yeah? Did everyone get that? So yeah, that's cool, right? That's Rails magic, but now you understand a little bit why it's happening. Okay. All right, so now we need to create our form in this new.html.erb file, right? This form is going to be used to create the book. It's essentially going to submit a post request, and it's going to create a book in our database and give some response. So let's go through that right now. All right, this is one of the more difficult parts of lecture. So if you guys have any questions like that you know, it will help anyone, just please ask, okay? Okay, so yeah, what's up? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Oh, no question? That's it? Okay. Yeah, you guys don't have to be coding this. You should just be looking and understanding because this is a lot of new stuff. Okay. Yeah. What's up, Rahul?
So is there some sort of like two books like hashtag you? Is that somehow that what tells it that it works?
Yes, exactly. That's what tells it. It looks in the routes file and then it says, so books is the controller name, hashtag, and then new is the controller action. Right? So it knows to go to this function in this books controller, this new function, and run that code. Yeah, by default, it'll look for that. That's because it's inheriting from application controller. Yes. Yeah. Huh? I can't hear you. Sorry.
What makes that class?
What makes that class?
No, why make it?
Why make it?
Yeah. That's not overwriting.
Wait, why make the books controller class?
Yeah.
Our book controller is a class for the controller function. You need it. Are you saying like, oh, it inherits from application controller, so just delete that? Oh, you saying just do class application controller? Yeah. Well, because you can define you know, helper functions that are going to be part of your books controller, but not your application controller. Because this is like just the definition of inheritance, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Should it also be spells the exact same name as the controller? Because you said the file name should be still controller.
Yeah.
There's a class name kind of same.
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm not sure. Sam, can you answer that?
What was the question?
So the question, guys, the question was, since you know our name of the file is books_controller, can we name that the same for the class instead of like books controller, books underscore controller. I think
so. What Rails does is it takes your file name, which is snip case, which is underscores and lowercase, and then it runs a command to transform that into the camel case thing, and then it looks for that class. So the class name has to match the file name. Otherwise, Rails won't work.
So the syntax is like post, select first name with the capital letter and control the character.
Yeah.
okay, cool. Any more questions? No? Oh, what's up?
The very first one, book/new. What is that? Is it referring to the HTML file?
Oh, book/new?
Yeah.
Oh no, so what happens is when our browser makes, you actually can see here, so if you look in your Rails server, it's saying started get /book/new, right? So basically your server looks at that and then goes to your routes file. And then it matches that with this right here. And then it knows to run the new function. And then after that, sends a response back with the HTML in the HTTP body.
So
Yeah.
it goes to the HTML file inside of the class. So like it goes to that class and then it links to the HTML file.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. All right. Good questions, guys. Yeah, what's up? Oh, she was just clarifying on like the steps. So when your browser, when you enter a URL into your browser, right, sends a GET request, and then she was just wondering what happens. Does it go look into the routes file after that? And it does. So it goes there and then it goes to the controller. That's how it knows to go to the new action, is because of our routes file. Yeah. Yeah. Where's that?
Where is that? In which directory is that?
It's in the books directory, and it has to be in the books directory. In views, yeah, views/books new.html.erb. Yeah. Good. Okay. Cool. All right. So let's create our form now, so we can actually create books from the browser, right? So again, I said this is going to be a little complicated, so bear with me here. You guys can see this? Yeah. Okay. So this is actually the code we need to write, this top box here, in our new view. And this is mostly embedded Ruby, right? Right here, basically what it's doing is calling a method called form_for, and it generates this corresponding HTML, right? So what's happening basically is when you write this code in your new.html.erb, this form_for stuff, right? And then when it actually renders that in the browser, it actually changes that into HTML. Like these two are basically the same thing. HTML is what is needed for the browser to actually like understand it. So does everyone get that? Yeah? So these are basically the same thing, but we use form_for because it's a lot easier than actually writing out all this HTML. Okay. So now I'm going to explain how it's actually doing this, okay? So right here, it's pretty simple, right? We're basically saying we're specifying for a URL, we want to go to the create action, but we haven't like which create action, right? If we had another model, like I don't know, a user model, that can also have a create action in its controller. But right, this box here just saying we want to go, when we post, we want to go to the create action. That's all it's saying, okay? So this book.new is what tells us that it's an actual book we want to create. Okay? So if you look here, since it's book.new, like Rails infers that we want, and this is a form_for, since it's book.new, Rails infers that we want to create a new book. So it generates the corresponding HTML for that. Yeah.
So the book, it's capitalized, so that's referring to the model, right?
Right, yeah.
And then the new is a control method, right? It's the method.
Oh no, it's not the control method actually. Yeah, it's the model method. This is a different new. It's not the controller method. This is the, like every model you have in Rails has its own functions, and this is one of them. Yeah, that has nothing to do with the new one. That's a good catch. Yeah, we're just saying here we're creating a new book so the form_for can understand what HTML to generate. So we see here it says action/books. It knows to do a post, because we're creating something. And really quickly, the difference between a get and a post. In CRUD, right? When the read, the R in CRUD, that's when we usually do a get. It's when you're basically, giving back static assets. You're not really changing anything in the database. You do a post when you want to create something. That's the general rule. The lab has a lot more information on this. There's a lot of links. It's really interesting. So don't be scared if you don't really get it yet. Okay, cool. So does everyone get how this sort of works? Why this form for creates this HTML? Yeah, it's a little tough. So okay, cool. I'm gonna move on then. So we're gonna write this stuff now. Okay. So let's see here. So again, Ruby, we have this. The reason why we have an equal sign after the percentage sign is because that's actually going to be shown in the browser. Like you put an equal sign in something that actually is rendered in the browser. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Form for. What book is doing is just for the form for to understand what form to generate. And our URL, because it's going to the create action, it generates the appropriate URL for that. And then title. Here is another Ruby method. By the way, F is a form object. So we're just passing in a block. I'm not really sure what a form object is, but it allows us to create forms and basically write the correct HTML. So we're going to specify here a text field. And then, because that's the name of our attribute. And then we have a. And you guys see how this is outside those percentage signs? Yeah, outside the embedded Ruby. So that's not Ruby. That's actually HTML because we're not putting it in those symbols. Description. So here we're gonna area, and these they do the same thing. They generate basically HTML. That's a text field and a text area. Right? Create a submit button, right? Submit. Then, because it's a do block, so we go like that. Okay, hopefully I didn't make any type. But if we refresh our view, let's see what's happening here. Right. Okay, so cool. So it's saying I didn't specify an action create yet, right? Because if we go to our controller, we didn't do that. The function in the controller, we also have to specify a route as well, correct? So this is going to be a post, not a get. /books. Okay. Here we go. Here's our form. Yeah. So if you check really quickly, it's gonna. So this is opening the developer tools in Chrome. You can see that this is HTML, right? Basically what I posted on that slide. So yeah. Okay. Cool. So let's see now. Okay. So let's try to submit something. Let's see what happens. Okay, it's telling me template is missing. So if we go back here, what's happening, right? When we click that create in the form, it sent a post request, right? To with /books. It goes to the create function, And here, like the default functionality, right? If you don't say specify render and the name of the thing you want to render, it's going to render create.html.erb. But that we didn't create that yet, right? So we're going to create that. So let's go back and let's try it again. Okay, so seems like it worked, right? Like we clicked create and it rendered a view. How many of you guys think it actually like created a model? Like it actually created an instance? Yeah, good. No hands are raised. I don't make every like question where it's like no hands are raised and it seems like you guys are participating. Just kidding. Yeah, and the reason is because when it ran the create function, right? If you look here, we didn't write any code that says to save it, right? So we need to do that. So let's go ahead and do that really quick. Are you guys following along? Is everything good? Cool. All right. So I want to specify an instance variable. Book/new. You guys don't really know what params is yet, so I'm gonna talk about that. Just writing the code that we need in order to save it. Oops, sorry. Okay, so let's understand what this is doing. This technically might work. We'll see. So what is params, right? We didn't even define it. It's just there. It just happens to be there, and it's gonna work. So params is when we submit the form, right? Those values that we put into the form are gonna be in a params variable that like Rails just automatically like defines that. It just makes that available for us. Okay, I know it's a little confusing, but here in our HTML, we see this, right? We see these attributes in these HTML docs. This allows Rails to know, like, okay, I'm gonna create a params variable, which is a hash or a dictionary, and basically a dictionary in Python, hash in Ruby. But so when we submit the request, Rails creates a params variable with the values that were in these inputs, and it knows that because of book title and book description. The lab explains this a lot more. There's links to actually understand why that's so. We used, you know how form 4, when we had our actual like new view, right? It actually has like, it has form 4, right? That allows it to know to make these basically like attributes. Yeah. So.
I see in our like new like view where it says like title and description, but where does it get book from? How does it come in the book?
Because of the book.new on top.
Lowercase is that?
Yeah. It knows how to do that. Yeah. Any other questions? Cool. So if we actually look in our server, and this should be something you guys do often, is look in your server and see what it's telling you, right? When we click that button, it's telling us the parameters it's sent right here. Well, let me rephrase that. That's not right. So this parameters is actually, so when the request is sent, again, Rails makes a params variable, and this is what is in the params variable. So it's just telling us, okay, this is what is in your params variable. Yeah. So if we go and see that, so we know params equals this, right? This big hash, and we can see right here, right? There's our values that we submitted it with. So that's our code in the create function. So when we do params and the key, which is book, it returns this, right? So basically what's happening in the create function is that it's just @book equals book.new, and the hash with the attribute, with the keys and values for our attributes for books. Yeah? So you can actually do this in your Rails console, and it will actually also create a new book. We can even try that if you guys want me to try that, or does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. Any questions?
Which one can you do? First one is
Oh, the last one. Well, in fact, you can make like a variable that's called params, and define it as that, and then just do that, and it would work. It's basically like in the console, right? It's running code. Hero, yeah.
I'm confused why the access the form from the view, like if you go back to the source line.
Okay.
But the first thing is view is like we like go to the view.html and see this form, and then once we make the book, how does it know to go to something called create?
It's because of this action create here. This action create generates the URL that corresponds to /books, which is in our routes file.
So action create always generates a URL of slash and you're like class.
Yeah, that's interesting. I believe for like, I'm not exactly sure, but I believe for like words like create, new, like basically standard RESTful definitions or actions like create, it automatically just generates /books for us. I think that's what happens. I'm not entirely sure. Do you actually know, Sam? So when I do action create, right? How does it know to create generate the URL /books? Yeah, that's a good question, Ho. I think we'll get back to you guys on that on Piazza.
Just like look at your class name and
Maybe, yeah. See, that's why I decided. Like, it took me a long time to actually know what's happening because you can just copy and paste things in Stack Overflow, right? But like, we're Cal students, right? So we try to understand what's happening, and it's good. So we don't just type things because Rails is at the point where you can just say, how do I create a form to create something? And you just, oh yeah, I'll place this. But this is sort of what's happening, and that's a good question. We'll post on Piazza. How is it actually generating that URL /books? I think because it's standard create, it knows that /books is a common URL for post. I'm going to talk about the resources method later in the routes file, and by default that has /books in it, so that's why I think it does it. Good question though. We'll figure that out. So yeah, does everyone understand now what params is and why when we have this code in our controller function, it creates a new book for us with the appropriate attributes and does book.save, which saves it to your database. Yeah, what's up?
I looked at I went to the console and did, book.all, and it's showing the fields are
For okay, so I'm gonna try to copy what you're doing. So you're saying when I
do book.all.
Okay.
I mean, mine came saved there, but the title and description.
Okay, so I think I know what you're saying. So you're saying when we create a new book, right? And then we specify the attributes here. Let's do title.
Like not the console page.
Do the page?
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna go through more of that controller function, and if that still pops up, then we'll figure that out. But since I'm already doing this, let's just finish this. So this. Oh, oops. Let me make this variable here. Let's just call it B. Is that working? Oh, right. I'm missing a. That's weird.
I think it's still in the original book document. Like, probably just won't see it.
Still not completely. Book.new description. There we go. So then we b.save it, and then we can see all the books we have, and it's there. Cool. And we can actually delete books by just specifying book.delete all, and it deletes that book for us. Well, it'll delete all, but we only have one. See, it's not there anymore. Okay. Okay, so let's try this now. Let's try submitting the form with this code. Oops. Okay. So, wait, is this the right? Sorry, let me. Okay, let's submit something. Huh.
Your hash bugs. It should be bugs.
Oh, it should be bug. Oops. Sorry. Right. Okay. This is what I was expecting. Sorry. Right. So, it's giving us this weird error called forbidden attributes error. Right. And the reason why this is so is because of security, and this is a very important security concept. And I'm going to try to explain it. So it's called strong parameters. So imagine we have a user model instead of a book model, right? And we also have a Boolean attribute in our user model called admin, right? And if admin is set to true, it gives us admin functionality. Basically, we could access certain pages and things like that. In fact, like our railsdecal.com website, we're admins, and we have more, like, we could, delete students and manage them and stuff like that, right? So we have this user model, right? And say, some hacker wants to send a post request to create a new user, okay? And Postman, which is something that people use to send requests, okay? So you can see here, this hacker guy, say we had a users model, and so users/add is where he would send the post request to, and you see he's setting the admin to true, right? So when he sends, basically, when he sends this request, it's sort of like submitting it on the form, except he's doing it through Postman. There's also curl, which allows you to do this through the terminal. But he's just basically just sending a post request to create a new user. Yeah? Oh, bigger? Yeah? Sorry, guys. Should have made the images bigger. So yeah, if he did this and we had this code right here, right? Except imagine this was user and we had a user model and we did params : user, it would create a user that would have an admin value that's true. We don't want that, right? We don't want to give hackers that sort of power, right? So we need a way to filter parameters. Okay? So we're gonna filter parameters right now. So we have this params variable, right, which holds our parameter or values. Function private. So we're gonna make a function that allows us to filter parameters. By the way, in Ruby, when you specify private, everything under that is private. So this function is private. If I wrote some stuff here, it would also be private. That's just something to know. I remember one time I wrote a function under private, but it wasn't supposed to be because I didn't know it made everything private. It took me like 5 hours to figure it out. But, yeah. Okay. Cool. So the way you filter is you have the params variable, right? You call require. So we're going to require the book subhash, essentially, right? If you look back at the params, let me go back there really quick. You can see that it's a hash within a hash, right? We have another hash here, so that's why we have to require book. So it gives us this stuff. And then what we can say is permit that we want to actually allow people to specify in order to create a book. Right? So is when we, well, let's call this function, right, within instead of, so we actually filter the parameters. We're only permitting the title and the description values, right? So if we say we had an admin value, it would filter that out. So like when a hacker sends when he sends a post request, he would not be allowed to change or make that admin attribute to true. Yeah? Cool. See, you have a question of like confused face. You good? The guy in the blue? No? Yeah, you're good. Okay. Are you guys good? I know this is new stuff, so okay. All right, so now let's go back here. Let's see if this works. Let's call it. So when we create, all right. So it looked like it worked. How do we know for sure? Well, one thing we can do is go ahead and check in our console, right? Usually you have to reload it. I usually do that. Okay, it's there. It looks like it's there. Harry Potter, Sleepy Hollow. So it's there. So we actually created a book through the browser. That's really awesome. Like, it's awesome. I'm probably back in the day when Rails didn't exist. That's probably super hard. Now it's very easy. But you can also check your Rails server. I encourage you guys to do that because it does output good stuff. And now it's actually saying we're creating something, right? It's saying begin transaction, and it creates it, and it commits the transaction. So basically, it's saying it created our book. Yeah? Cool. Any questions? Yeah?
Sorry, to go back to the
Yeah.
Sorry, would you mind explaining why do we need to make that private instead of just like do the required?
We make it private because it's just good practice, right? We're just gonna use this function in our in this specific controller. It's not gonna be used in another file. It's not gonna be used globally. We don't want that. It's just good practice. You can also like not make it private. I just do it because it's good practice. Yep. No. Okay. All right. So usually after you like create a user or something, you want to show the information, right? So now, oh, by the way, we just finished the C in CRUD to create. So now we're gonna go on to R, which is read. We're gonna show the. You have a question? No. Huh?
How do you unprivate it after you?
Unprivate it? Oh, yeah. I don't know. There's probably some code. Usually it's just Ruby. It's good to put all your private stuff in the bottom.
Oh,
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm not a Ruby guy. Yeah. Only enough for Rails. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So now show the information after we like create a book, right? Usually that happens, right? You go create a user. You sign up for on some website. It takes you to the user profile and shows your information. Okay. So for that, we're gonna do a show action. Okay. First, let's also make a route for it. Quicker now since we understand this stuff. Right. So we're gonna say books ID. I'm gonna say show. Okay. So when it runs the create code when we submit on the form, we need some way of saying redirect to that show action, right? Does everyone get that? Like we're gonna need some code here that says, okay, so after you create, I don't want you to render the create.html.env. I want you to redirect to the show action and render the show view instead.
Why can't you make another line to the routes and that's just like post to books and then also says to like hash like shit?
Can you say that again?
Like in your routes,
Mhm.
can you add another line that says, you did a post request.
Yeah. Then go to show.
Yeah, post to show into.
I believe, I don't know if you can do that in Rails. Usually you just specify the route. But what's interesting, this at the end of the lecture, we're going to see an easier way to do routes. Like you don't have to type out all this stuff. You just do one line, which I think Wanjun touched upon it. It's called resources, which allows us to do this. Okay. Okay, so we need to redirect to the show action. But in order to do that, we need to specify a prefix. And I'll talk about what prefixes are. So, all right, let's go to the slides, talk about it. Right, so prefixes, right? So when I do rake routes, it shows all of our routes that we defined, correct? We see, obviously the verb is the, HTTP verb, the URL, and the control and action, but we never talked about prefix. And we're gonna learn that right now. Basically, prefix is a method that allows you to, that generates the URL corresponding to that action. Okay, so it generates. So if we like did book/new, books_new, and then everything is, by the way, suffixed by path or underscore URL. So if we did like books_new_path, it would actually like generate that URL for us. And I'll show you that in the Rails console really quick. So if we did app, see how it actually like returned the URL string? Do you see that? Yeah, so that's basically what, when you specify a prefix, it defines a method that does that for you. Hey, sir.
Why is the post request just /books instead of /post?
That's a good question. We just make it /books. Rails, it's just default that Rails, that's how Rails likes it. We can also do /create if we wanted. But /books is sort of Rails default way of doing it. Okay, let me just show you this really quick. So usually instead of specifying all these routes, you do resource books, right? So what resources is a method that basically just generates these routes for us and more. If we do rake routes now, so these are all routes. That's what resources is. RESTful is just search that up. It's basically just allows us to do CRUD functionality. But you see here that it automatically, like we just commented out this code, right? We just have resources : books, and it does for us post/books right here, right? That's just the default way of doing things in Rails. You could do /create and make your own routes and stuff like that, but this is just what Rails does. And that probably touched upon what you said, Rahul, about like what it's generating. I'm curious to see what happens. But yeah, what's your question?
Can you choose instead of books?
Can you choose instead of books?
Like resources, colon, and then like
Oh, like a different thing?
yeah,
Like that won't really work. I mean, it will generate the routes for it, right? But ADSF, right, doesn't correspond to really. It's not. I mean, if we did like, if we did ASDF here, and then if we basically did ASDF here, and then did books number show, that would work. But usually we specify the name of the actual controller we're using. I don't know if that was good. Yeah, if you see here, it's like saying ADSF number show. So we will need to create an ADSF controller. Yeah. So this resources books literally just generates routes for you, and I'll touch upon that more later. Let's go ahead and comment out that resources books right now, and go back here. So yeah, I'm gonna specify a prefix. Let's call it book. Okay. So now, if I go to my Rails console, let's restart it, and I do app. Well, let me. So, because do you see this placeholder here, :ID? Do you see that? That's a placeholder for like the ID of the book. So when you call this method book path, again, it's book, but we always append things with _path or _URL. We have to pass in an actual book so it knows which ID to go to. So let me give you an example. So b equals book.first, just saying get the first book that we created. So we see here we have a book. So I'm gonna do app.bookpath. Give us the URL. You see that? Book/2. And it's 2 because the ID is 2 in the book. Cool. Okay, so let's do this now in our actual create function. Cool. So let's head. Oh, I'm sorry. Got redirect to. Redirect to the show path for this specific book. Right? And I'm pretty sure you guys know about views now, so I'm just going to template right now. So back to our app. And let's just do the same values. See, so it redirects to our show view. Right, so it created another book with those same values, and then it redirects to our show view. And obviously, we don't want just our actually show the description and title of that book, correct? So when it redirects to the show view here, it also runs the show code, right? Let's go ahead and create some HTML or embedded. We want to show our book, right? You guys might be questioning, why am I saying that book? I didn't define it yet, so we'll see what happens. Title. And description. So let's refresh this page. Okay, it's giving us a no method error. Undefined method title for nil class. And that's because I didn't define book in our right? So let's go back to our show action. And the params variable is available. And we can see, let me just write this code really quick. Params ID. Right? So the browser sends, this time since I'm refreshing the page, it sends a GET request, right, to this URL. The reason why params, if you look in our Rails server, you can see that our parameter is ID 5. And the reason why it knows that is when our browser issues a GET request with this URL, our Rails app receives that and sees /5 in this URL. And if you look at our routes, it's the same structure. So it knows to make the params, have the params variable with ID 5 in it, right? Params ID, it's actually book.find5 in this case, right? And then since we didn't specify a render, it's just going to render show, the show view. Yeah, at is just an instance variable. So talking about scope a little bit, this app book is basically different than this app book, right? It's scoped to the function. Okay, cool. It's pretty awesome, right? We just let's go ahead and just do this again. See it all in. Okay, so the book, and look at that. Goes to our show action and renders those values in our book. We just completed the R in CRUD. Yeah, halfway there. So
the create method is passing the ID of the new book to the show method. Is that where it's getting the ID from?
It's getting the ID from the URL.
Okay.
So when we do redirect to and then the URL, which is going to be books/6 in this case,
Okay.
our browser issues another GET request, and then our server receives that, and then the params is now params ID 5, and then finds that book. And then again, just in the show, we're using the appbook.title and appbook.description to render the values for our book. Yeah, are you guys all with me right now? No, it's pretty late, so okay. Okay, so now let's do the U in CRUD. Okay, so the U stands for update. We're gonna need to update books now. So what do we need to update books? Does anyone know? What are we gonna need? Again, we're gonna need another form, right? Just like creating it, we're gonna need a form to update books, and then we're gonna need some actions and routes. So let's go ahead and define those now. So first is the routes. Let's go ahead and define some routes. We're gonna define route here that basically takes us to the form to edit a book. So again, it's a GET request. We're gonna call it, let's call it edit. And edit. I need to issue a patch in order to update the attributes in that book. And patch, so the difference from patch, put, and post, right? Those are sort of the, and delete, those are the 4 HTTP verbs that you use to either create things or manipulate data, right? So post is for actually creating a new thing. Patch is when you want to update an attribute within your instance. Put is when you want to like completely replace that instance with another instance. And delete, of course, is to delete the instance. Okay? And then the lab goes into, have a lot of links on there that will show you, like, you guys are curious understanding the differences between the HTTP verbs, they'll be there. Okay? So let's do that. And let's also specify an update function. Patch set books. Update. Okay, so now we did that, right? Now we're also going to need to define these functions in our controller. Let's do that really quick. All right, so let's call this edit.html.urb in our views. Right? Okay, so we're going to need a link in order, well, we could type it in the URL, but let's do this through a link in HTML. And let's do it in our show view, right? So we're in our show view right here, right? And if we want to specify a link that says, do you want to edit this form? You click that link, it takes you to the edit form, right? It renders the edit.html.urb, okay? Is everyone following me right now? Yeah, cool, cool. All right, again, you use a method in Ruby to do this. You can also specify it in HTML, but it's better to do it in embedded Ruby. So link to, and then edit this book is just the string which you can click on to actually like go to the next link. And then, okay, so we need to specify another path, right? Sort of a method that takes us to that URL. And for that, we need another prefix. So let's add a prefix here. And then, let's see, what do we want to call it? Let's call it edit book. Huh.
Single though. Books hashtag.
Oh, I see, cool. All right, cool, cool. All right, so then after you specify like the words for your link, you put in another argument, which is the path to the edit function essentially. So it's edit underscore book underscore path because everything is appended with underscore path. Now, all right, we see our link, right? Cool. So if we click on this, it should run the code in our edit function and render edit.html.urb. Right? So let's click on it. Interesting. So it's saying it's going to a show path. Oh, right. I didn't pass in the book. Right. I need to pass in the book, right? Because we have a placeholder that for :ID. And of course, the reason why is it needs to know which book to edit. So let's try this again. Huh. In a route?
Get book / edit / IDs.
Oh, oops. Yeah, I put it in the wrong one. This should work, right, Sam? Before edit, right? And yeah, /books. Here we go. And the reason why we need this placeholder :ID is because it needs to know which book to render and to update. So let's try this again. It's still going to show. Interesting. Sorry, guys. What's happening here? Yeah. Two.
Is this supposed to be like a book ID?
No, this should work. Actually, this should work as well. Remember, there we go. That's interesting. Actually, I don't know what's happening here. So it looks like at book, it takes us to the show action. But when we actually remove that, it takes us to the edit action. Some Rails magic is going on here. Do you know why that's happening? Yeah. Let's try it again. Oh, now it's working? Okay. Maybe I was wrong. Yeah, that's weird. Okay, yeah, this should actually go, because this path right here, edit underscore book path, corresponds to the prefix with our edit route. Should take us to our edit path. I mean our edit view. Sorry. Cool. All right, so let's create a new form for our edit. I'll just quickly show you guys. This is the form we need to create, the form for, and it generates this corresponding URL, right? And I'll go back, once I create this form, I'll go back if you guys have any questions on why this specific stuff on the top makes this. I'll talk about that. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just gonna copy and paste. I'm tired. All right, let's see. First argument form cannot contain nil or be empty. And that's, of course, because we didn't specify it in our controller, right? So let's do that. And guys, just a quick question. So we did strong parameters on our create method, right? Remember we called it books underscore params? Why are we not doing it for show and edit? Why? Yeah, it's just reading. There's no issues with that. It's just going to read. It's not actually updating anything in our database. So we don't need to call strong params, and Rails allows us to do this by just calling params :id. Cool. All right, so here's our form, and look at that. That's very interesting, right? It actually like put our values in the input. Like this was our original values for this book, and it actually just put them in it for us. And this is the magic of form 4. This is what it does. So one thing about Rails, it's like, you know, it's like you sort of do things now. There's so much abstraction. It's like it just works. It's good to go underneath and try to figure out what's happening. So when you guys start messing with Rails more, you'll actually start discovering that. But yeah, so here we're passing in at book, right? This is our current book and action update. And just with this information, just with these two, it knows that we're creating a form that's going to update our book. Right? Cool. Any questions? All right. Let's go ahead. And so let's go back to our edit function. To show afterwards, right? And of course, when we submit the form, run the update code, right? If you go back, we know that because of the URL and because of the, right, so it says method post. That's interesting, right? Because we said hatch, but it's saying post. And the reason for that, this is more a little in detail, is that the only two HTTP verbs that are native to browsers are post and get. Patch, delete, and put, they're all like Rails stuff. That's right, right? Yeah, I believe that's right. So that's why the browser actually has to do post. But when Rails sees that, and it sees the post and basically changes that to a patch within the routes. Yeah, does that make sense? Okay. Again, let's find our book, right? And then for this. And then since we're updating a strong, and then from there, right, sorry, this redirect should be here. Save function. Okay, cool, let's check this out. So let's just refresh. So let's actually change this to something that's actual book. What's an actual book? Huh? 50 Shades of Grey? Okay. Okay, so undefined local variable book params, right? Because I said books. Okay. I wish like coding just like there's some text editor that knows and just changes it for you. Pretty cool. Okay, so we update it, and look at that! It changed the actual values in our book. That's ID 6. Like, dude, like guys, I know you guys are all tired and midterm season, but dude, this is amazing. Like for any application, like these are like the basic, the fundamental functionality you need. Like anything. Like this is really, really cool. I know it's late, but get hyped, get hyped. Right? Woo! Thanks, man. Cool. All right. Last thing, the last thing is D, right? Delete. So we need to be able to delete this book. So in order to do that, right, we need another route in order to delete our book. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay. Oh yeah, thanks guys. Okay, and then let's call this method books destroy. So now we need a destroy function. I'll go a little quicker here. Find that book and destroy it, which I believe is gonna be what's the function to delete it? I forgot. Let me write it down. And then we probably want to redirect to the new form, right? Because when you delete something, probably you want to go to the new .html.erb to be able to create new books. So let's go ahead and do that. Redirect to see what the prefix is for. It's books underscore new path. So let's go ahead and put. Last thing we have to do is in our show.html.erb. Remember, this is showing the attributes in the book. We want to create another link that deletes this book. And I'm gonna see what the path is. Oh, I'm sorry. Right. Right. Okay. So just gonna write this down really quick. Essentially the code, well, hopefully, that you need to delete a book. We have to pass in that book so it knows which book to delete, and we specify the method here, which means we're doing an HTTP verb delete sort of action, I guess. All right, hopefully this works. So let's click this. Cool, so it looks like it worked. So what happened is we clicked this, the browser issued a delete request, right? And we looked in our routes, so we see books, hashtag destroy, and it basically ran the destroys code. So it found the book, destroyed it, redirected us to the new path, and then rendered that new form. But let's.
Are there no parentheses or
destroy? Yeah, there's no parentheses. Yeah, just Ruby. So yeah, let's check our server. Let's see if it actually deleted it, just to make sure. Okay, it did. begin transaction, delete from, and it deleted the booklet ID 6. Right? Okay. Yeah. Cool, cool. So that's the D and CRUD. We're done. We're done. Okay, so last thing I'm going to talk about is, again, this thing called resources, right? Instead of specifying all these routes, what we could have done was the same thing as this, with maybe different prefixes. And if we want to rake routes, they should be about the same routes because resources also one, and I believe a put request as well. So you can see there's put here and index, but other than that, everything's about the same, right? Right? Like all this is sort of the same as this stuff. And index is usually used to like display all the books. So you would like do def index, you know, book dot all, or find book, yeah, find all the books basically. So yeah, that's it. That is it. So again, same as that. Soak it in. It's a lot of stuff. Yeah. Cool. All right. So now that's it. We also have a lab with this. I know it's super long. It's already 8:30. The lab goes into depth about like what we talked about. And hopefully you actually understand what Rails is doing now. But seriously, like CRUD is what you need to create any idea that you have. Go out and change the world. Yeah, thank you.